Good morning, gents, and welcome to day 3 of our revision sessions. Today, we're still having a look at paper 1, specifically question 3, which is advertising. In terms of resources, we're still using either the Beryl Lutrin English Handbook and Study Guide or your online copy of a survival guide to English, specifically today, section 12, advertising. And then lastly, the past paper, and the one I'm looking at the moment is the November 2024 paper 1. Now, gents, if you go and have a look at the examiner's report or the chief marker's report from this particular paper, in terms of advertising, we're told that it's really important that we show our knowledge of advertising techniques. There's a lack of knowledge of the advertising techniques that gets revealed in the answers. And then, of course, you don't earn all the marks that you should be earning. The second thing is that you need to look at the question carefully and fulfill both parts of the question every time. So those are two things to look out for. Just as a side note, I'm sorry if there's some giggling in the background this morning. My daughter and I are home alone, and she thinks that this process of recording videos is absolutely hilarious. All right, so let's know our basics. And I firstly want to revise what I taught you yesterday about visual literacy. Whenever we're doing paper 1, when we start a question, the first thing we ask ourselves, is this question text-rich or text-poor? In the case of an advert, we are going to answer that it is text-poor. And so I really appeal to you to analyze the text first by peeling the onion. How do we peel the onion? We start on the outside with the really eye-catching things, and then we slowly move our way inwards to the detail. All right, so when we're peeling the onion, we start by looking at the layout. Then we go on to look at the pictures and the people and their interactions. Now, when we're looking at the pictures, there are going to be some buzzwords for advertising, and I'll speak to you about those in the next slides. And then lastly, we start looking at the words and the purpose of this particular document or this particular text. All right. And then once we have a good grip of what's going on in that text, then we go and do our question analysis and answer our questions. So let's jump into advertising. What is an advert? An advert is a message that is designed to promote a product, a service, or an idea that appeals to a human need, want, or value. So what I always tell my classes is an advert thinks about something that we khala for, something that we really want or desire, and then it targets everything in the advert towards meeting that particular thing that we are khalaing for. Like if it's nearly break time and we start smelling the slap chips from the tuck shop, that's an advertising technique. The advertising is the tuck shop is using smell, our sense of smell, to call us to their shop. All right? And so that's what advertising does. What you will see in the curriculum is that quite often adverts are targeted at selling an idea or a value. So calling us to action, telling us to stop throwing our plastic in the ocean, or encouraging us to get involved in a sports program. It appeals to human values, things that we think are important as human beings. Think of your LO syllabus. Where are adverts found? Adverts are messages that are shown to the public via the media by means of newspapers, magazines, radio, television, billboards, flyers, etc. And gents, one of the things that the examiner's report pointed out to us last year is that you really need to practice analyzing adverts. It's not good enough just doing it in the exam. Adverts are something that we're exposed to all the time. Whenever you see an ad, try and practice working out what's going on there. So, for example, when you drive down Cathcart Road and you drive past Fishy Fish and Chips, think about that name, right? there's a pun on the word fishy, and I think that the intention of the shop was to tell us that their fish tastes particularly fishy. It tastes like the ocean. But of course, if we look at the other meaning of that word, fishy can mean dicey or dodgy, and fish that is dodgy might make us sick. So the unintended consequence of that pun is that we might be suspicious of the shop. Of course, this might just be a really clever advertising technique, because by creating a negative image or by creating controversy around the name of the shop owner might actually be trying to intrigue us and make us come to the shop to see which type of fishy the fish and chips actually is. All right. Even when you're on YouTube and you get those free ads, ask yourself, why am I the target market for this particular ad? What does the algorithm think of me? When we're doing advertising, it's really important that we have a look at the idea of the AIDA principle. And you will see that I've taken this screenshot directly out of section 12 of your survival guide. All right. And the AIDA principle is something that we use when we're wanting to analyze an advert. Because if adverts are trying to get us to buy something, whether it's a product, a service, or an idea, it's going to try and draw us in. And we need to look at how the ad drew us in. And the AIDA principle is sort of an alternate way to peeling the onion. So in a short while, I'm going to peel the onion with you in the November 2024 paper, but you can also use the AIDA approach to investigate an advert. So the A in AIDA stands for attention. What particular technique has been used to draw our attention to an advert? Is there an interesting photo or picture? Are the words typed very bold and written in a way that grasps our attention? Is there a contrast between light and dark that gives us a certain impression of the advert, etc., etc.? Once the advert has our attention, how does this advert try and maintain our interest? Now, when an advert tries to maintain your interest, it has to have an awareness of who the target market is, right? So if the target market is teenage boys, a particularly pretty young lady might maintain their interest. Whereas if the target market is stay-at-home moms, they might want to see something like an image of a happy baby or something like that. So interest is very clearly tied to target market. How do they keep us invested in their advert? Then we move on to desire. What are they trying to make us chala for in this advert? Okay. What about this advert makes us think, yo, I really want to buy that McDonald's burger, or I really want to buy, on the opposite end of the spectrum, that health shake? All right. What are they appealing to? And now when it comes to desire, there are lots of persuasive techniques that they use to make us desire things. I'll just give two examples very quickly. Persuasive language, using lots of adjectives and emotional words like the best in the business. All right. That's a technique that makes us think that we will be successful if we also use that particular product. That's one technique, using emotive or persuasive language. Another technique is to use jargon or scientific language. I'm sure you've heard those ads where they say 95% of dentists prefer such and such toothpaste, right? What they're trying to do there is they're throwing in a statistic and a fact and a professional to try and give their advert legitimacy, scientific legitimacy. And so it makes the advert more believable, and it makes it seem like the product will work really well. And that's a different persuasive technique, referring to the accuracy of the knowledge or the professionalism of the knowledge. And then the last aspect of AIDA is action. And it wasn't a question last year, but it's quite often a question in the exam. How does this advert call us to action? When we look at the advert, what are we going to do next to make sure that we buy the product? Sometimes they might advertise that the product is on sale, which means that we can get it at a cheaper price if we rush to the shop now. Sometimes they'll tell us which shop we can buy it at. Maybe the avos are available at Fresh Stop, and then we'll know we've got to visit Fresh Stop. One of the newer techniques is that they'll give you the URL or the link to a website, something that you can click on or go and search to go directly to the website and buy the product online. That's something that calls you to action quite easily. So adverts always have this idea of buy the product now. Sometimes by advertising a good price or a cheaper price, sometimes by telling us where we can get it, and sometimes by inserting the actual link on the advert that we can in one click get that product. All right, so now that I've discussed some of the different advertising techniques with you through the perspective of the AIDA principle, I need to discuss the buzzwords or the jargon that you're going to come across when you're doing advertising. And while I discuss the buzzwords and the jargon, I'm actually going to be having a look at one of these papers, one of these adverts from the paper that we're busy with at the moment, to kill two birds with one stone. Remember, gents, that you need to go through the advertising techniques theory on your own. I'm just going through jargon and the AIDA principle with you, and then I'm going to start applying it. If what I'm saying sounds like Greek, then you need to consult your English teacher about which notes you can study for advertising, and they'll point you in the right direction. So let's look at the first word on our list. The first word on our list today is layout. Okay? Layout literally means how everything is arranged on the page. So it can relate to coloring, although our ads will be black and white in the exam. It can speak to the coloring. It can speak to the position of the pictures, how big or small the pictures are, how much writing is in the advert, whether the logo and slogan are prominently displayed, etc. And layout can play quite a big part in selling an advert to the particular audience it's aimed at. The next term I want us to look at is visual copy. That word visual came up yesterday, hey? And we said that visual refers to pictures. And in adverts, it's exactly the same. So if we look at the visual copy in this particular advert, then we will see that we've got people playing sport. And notice how I'm peeling the onion. I haven't looked at any of the words yet. I've started on the outside and I'm just looking at the pictures. The pictures show me a range of different people playing sport. I think I see someone bowling or batting with a cricket bat. I see a tennis player. I see someone running with a ball, and I see a dancer of some sort, right? So we've got a variety of different sports being advertised in this advert. And if you look at the picture itself, you'll see that it's sort of cartoon-like, which makes it quite modern and trendy. Next on my list of buzzwords, product, all right? And the one below it as well, service. A product is an object that they want us to buy. A service is a particular skill set or something people are going to do for you that they'd want us to buy. There's a third aspect that I haven't put in the buzzwords, and that is an idea. Sometimes an advert is to sell us an idea, not actually a product, all right? And if we look at this advert, we're going to see that it's not designed for a product or a service. They're not trying to sell us the tennis racket or the cricket bat. They're trying to inspire excellence through sport. And there's a hashtag here. Hashtag means a young audience, right? Because it refers to social media. There's a hashtag here that says play your part. So they're trying to encourage us to get involved in sport in some way or another. This advert is selling us an idea. It's an advert related to advocacy. Then the brand. What particular brand are we talking about? Now, if it was a product, we'd look at a brand like Nike or McDonald's or something along those lines. In this advert over here, brand South Africa. So I don't know if this has something to do with tourism or sport, but it's an idea of representing your country. Do you see that? And then while I've highlighted the particular brand we're looking at, we move straight onto logo. And I hope you know that the term logo actually means the picture that represents the organization. So that picture that represents brand South Africa is actually a bit of a deconstructed version of the South African flag. Do you see that? The slogan, Okay? The slogan is the catchphrase that identifies a particular company. All right? So when you were in grade 9, your teacher would have played a game with you and asked, whose slogan is I'm loving it? And you would have said McDonald's. Whose slogan is just do it? And you would have said Nike, right? So a slogan is a popularized saying that represents a particular brand or company, right? So the slogan of this company is inspiring new ways. So they're wanting us to be innovative. All right, that's the slogan. Sometimes adverts have a slogan for a particular product within the range or something like that, but a slogan is a catchphrase. All right. A headline is next on our buzzwords list. Now, you need to be careful and you need to know the difference between a slogan and a headline. Where a slogan is a catchphrase, usually linked to a company or a product, the headline is the clever wording that they're trying to sell this particular advert to with us, where they're appealing to our desires in this particular advert. So the headline for this advert is Inspiring Excellence Through Sport. And your headline, guys, is where we start getting into the words, okay? The headline is where we start getting into the words, and that's where we're now going to have to start looking out for figures of speech, alliteration, assonance, onomatopoeia, strategic use of punctuation, irony, puns, etc., etc., because we are getting into the words in the advert. Now, what you will see is that in this advert, there's actually an additional slogan. Remember, I said a headline is the particular catchphrase trying to make us buy into that advert, whereas a slogan represents a company or a business or a product or an idea. So there's a second slogan in this particular advert that doesn't represent the brand, but that represents the cause that we're fighting for in this advert, and it is play your part. Do you see there that I've immediately got an example of alliteration? So the alliteration has a P sound, which encourages maybe quick movement and links well to sport and catches our attention that they want us to move on this advert. Right. 3 more buzzwords. Body copy. The body copy is just a fancy word for the words in the advert. Okay? Body copy, if they tell you to speak about the body copy, you can't speak about the picture or the layout. You can only speak about the words. And in most cases, what you're going to see is for ease of access. In case some of us don't see very well, they're going to take the written words and they're going to put them in a block, either alongside or underneath the advert that we're busy analyzing. So the body copy in this advert says, inspiring excellence through sport. Sport continues to be a driving force that inspires our people and positions South Africa positively on the global stage. Be part of a team that strives to make South Africa an inspiration to the world. And listen to those verbs there. Be part of a team, right? It's a command, it's an imperative verb, and it's telling us to take action, all right? Also notice the additional use of alliteration, the continued use of the P sound, which once again emphasizes this quick moving sound. And it shows us that we should also be playing sport so that we can represent our country globally. What desire or feeling are they appealing to here, guys? I think they're appealing to my sense of nationalism or patriotism. It's like a proudly South African kind of thing. Love your country, take part in sport, show us off in the world. Do you see? And then after they've called us to action, they also give us a tangible place to go and support this cause by giving us the website. Okay. Target market, second last concept. All right. The target market of an advert are the people who are going to buy the product or idea. So who would the target market for this advert be? It would be South Africans, perhaps young South Africans who are of the age where they can play sport. And the hashtag also shows me that. but there's my target market, young South Africans, sport playing South Africans, etc., etc. So who, target market speaks to who is going to buy this product. And you remember that in the trial paper, we had that big hoo-ha around men being the target market and different brands of masculinity. So if you haven't spent time on that, go and spend some time on it now. Sorry for the faces I'm pulling. My daughter's getting up to mischief. And then lastly, think of the purpose of an advert once again. What is the purpose of this advert? It's not to sell a product, it's to sell an idea. It's to call us to action, to go out and play sport and work on representing our country. So it's actually an advert linked to activism. And the purpose is to get people participating actively to represent their country. That was a long discussion. You've already exceeded your 15 minutes for the day. We're on 20. I'm sorry that I stole 5 minutes, but remember, we've been told by those at the top that advertising techniques are really, really important to understand if we're going to answer question 3 successfully. If you can give me some extra time, I'm now going to go into the past paper, peel the onion for the second advert, and then also discuss the questions so that you can see how to get to your answers. I'm a permanent cheat sheet, eh? Because if you listen to the whole video, then you can let me help you answer the questions and you don't have to do them yourself later today. Rosie! All right, I'm back. My apologies for the blooper there. This is a one take only show, and I just had to clean up some little person messes. All right, let's get straight into peeling the onion and working out what's going on in the second advert in our exam. So we start with the outside, we start with the layout of the advert. In terms of the layout of the advert, we see real people quite prominently and proudly displayed at the front, and the setting behind them is quite light. Do you see the sunlight behind them, which creates a positivity around them and the idea of energy around them? In terms of layout, I also notice that the people are in a gym, all right? Look at that weight over there, okay? And you'll see that the headline for this advert is displayed there in the light, in the sunlight. So that creates a lot of positivity around the headline. And later when we look at the words, we'll see this word rise. And you see how nicely it's tied up with the light that it's in. It's a very uplifting message that the advert has. Then if we look at the visual copy or the visuals, when we're looking at our visual copy, like I said, these are real people. And if we have a look at them, they're female cricket players. But have a look a little more deeply using your cartoon techniques. Look at their body language and their facial expression. Their mouths are in a straight line. They look quite determined. In terms of body language, their posture is upright and assertive, which shows that they're successful at whatever they're doing. All right. Also notice that there's sort of micro advertising within this advert because the sponsors Momentum and NB on their shirts. And so they're getting some extra free coverage there. The product or the service or the idea that we're trying to sell in this advert, it is not NB clothes and it is not Momentum Insurance. It is actually, remember, look for the logo. It's got to do with these logos here. There's a South African flag. If you don't know, this is the Proteas cricket emblem, and there is a picture of a cricket ball, and it says Cricket South Africa. And if you look on your hard copy of your ad, you can actually see that it says Cricket South Africa. So very uncomplicated. We are advertising playing women's cricket. Okay. And the brand is Cricket South Africa. And the logo is the cricket ball. If they were to ask us to analyze the logo, guys, have a look at the movement lines on the cricket ball. We've got a cricket ball, and then we've got two gray-colored movement lines. What do movement lines show? They show that the ball's moving fast. So it's as if the ball is being bowled, which makes that logo for Cricket South Africa quite effective. We go to the slogan. There is not a specific slogan in this advert. There isn't a specific slogan that was shown for Cricket South Africa, and there is a headline, okay? We rise together for our nation's pride, and then there's that body copy hashtag always rising, but there isn't actually a slogan in this ad. I suppose the picture is the focus. All right, we go to the headline. The headline says, "We rise together for our nation's pride." And now remember, in terms of headline, we've got to start looking at figures of speech, parts of speech, punctuation, etc., etc., etc. And what really stands out in this headline for me, there are two things that stand out. The first one is this idea that of the verb rise and the fact that it's actually on the sun. So the sun is rising and we are rising. It shows the positivity that women's cricket is growing, it's illuminating, it's lighting up in our country. And then the use of the pronoun we. The use of the pronoun we is always significant because it's a personal pronoun. It's a subject pronoun. We rise. It makes me feel like I'm part of this community. And so they're trying to appeal to my desires to be part of a team. I'm together with the team. And they even clarify it by using the word together after they've used the word we. And then for our nation's pride relates to target market. Once again, we're trying to appeal to people who are sporty and who are patriotic towards their country, who love their country. Okay, this time maybe women, because they show us women cricket players. Okay, the body copy. This advert doesn't have body copy, but it does have that hashtag, that subheading, always rising. Okay. Always rising means we're coming up, we're improving, we're going to a global stage. Think back to the previous ad that we did. Target market, we've already discussed. And then the purpose of this advert is to get us to be inspired to play women's cricket and to support the women's cricket team. There you go, we've peeled the onion. I think we understand most aspects about this advert, these very assertive cricketers who are shining a positive light on cricket in our country. Let's finally get into today's question paper. All right, question number 4.1 reads, what is the purpose of the slogan, #PlayYourPart? In that question, it's important that we pay attention to the idea of purpose, the idea of slogan, all right? And then the slogan is play your part. They've identified the slogan that they want you to refer to. Okay, so if we think of purpose, what does purpose mean? Purpose means, why are we creating this advert? What is the objective of this advert? The purpose is the objective. Why are we making it? And then slogan. Slogan means a catchphrase related to a company or a business or an idea. Okay, so why do we have the slogan play your part? All right, so the purpose of advertising in general is to encourage the reader to buy a product or an idea. So just by saying we want to encourage the reader to buy into the idea, we're going to get 1 mark for that word encourage. But now what idea are they buying into? This slogan, #PlayYourPart. If I tell you, I'm helping you study for the final exams, but I need you to watch this video, just play your part. It means that I'm asking you to do your bit, hey, to do what's required, okay? So they're encouraging the reader to do what's required to promote sport in South Africa, or to promote South Africa itself, or to be part of sports teams within their country, to elevate their country onto a global stage, anything along those lines. Do you see that I can't say it's encouraging us to play our part, because then I'm just repeating the slogan. I have to show the marker that I know what play your part means. It means do your bit and promote South Africa or promote South African sport. Once we know the jargon and we know the advertising techniques and we've analyzed our advert, it's quick and easy, isn't it? Let's move straight to 3.2. Refer to the written text inspiring excellence through blah, 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 blah to the world. They're just showing us that they want us to focus on the body copy or the written text. Okay. And then with reference to one technique and one example, comment on how the advertiser promotes the campaign. Okay, lots of buzzwords we need to talk about here, guys. Do you remember that yesterday we spent time analyzing our questions? It's so important that once we come to grips with our advertising techniques, that we also analyze our questions. Okay, I don't know why I just drew that block there. It's not what I'm looking for. Sorry, let me just erase it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go to our question and we want to find the question word. And the question word in this case is comment on. All right? Comment on means give me your judgment. Remember we spoke about yesterday the fact that some answers are fact and others are opinion. This is an opinion question. You've got to comment on something. You've got to give your judgment. And you'll see for questions that say things like critically discuss or comment on, the mark allocation is always 3 marks. Because after you've discussed the facts, you have to bring in an opinion or a judgment. So you have to judge. What do you have to judge? The focus area. You've got to judge the written text of the advert. You've got to give your judgment of the written text of the advert, specifically how it promotes the campaign. What does this word promotes mean? To promote basically means to sell, hey. To promote an idea means to sell an idea, to make people want something. So you've got to look at how this particular advert, judge the advert in terms of how the written words promotes the campaign, how the written word sells the campaign. Promotes is just a hard word for sells, hey. Okay, so special instructions is the last aspect. After question word and focus area, got to look at special instructions. They want us to discuss one technique, I'm trying to underline it, and one example. Now, guys, that's a special instruction that so many people missed last year in the November exam. It even came through in the examiner's report. So you must discuss one advertising technique and then give a concrete example. An example from where? An example from the written text. Can you tell me about the fact that there are lots of sports represented in the picture? No, you can't, because that's the visual. And they're asking us to talk about the written text. So we've got to go and look at our words. We've got to identify the words, give the example, and then explain how, which advertising technique they are and how they promote the product. Okay, or the campaign in this case. Okay, so we could talk about the fact that the word inspiring is written in big, bold letters. And so it calls us to action. And it encourages the reader to be part of this emotional movement that is inspiring. And so that would make us want to be part of the campaign because we want to be part of making a difference. What else could we look at? We could look at the alliteration, right? We spoke about inspires people, positions positively, that quick moving alliteration, the repetition of the P sound draws our attention to the fact that sport is something which moves fast when it's creating a positive impact. And so the example of the alliteration is a technique which gets us involved in the action of the advert, gets us excited about it through wording, and then will make us want to join the movement. How does it promote the campaign? It gets us excited about joining this fast-paced movement by drawing us in with the alliteration. Do you see how much I'm elaborating, guys? You must write like that in your answers as well. If something is for 3 marks, I need at least 3 sentences. 1 sentence explaining that the alliteration, repetition of the P sound creates a fast-paced movement. That's my example. 1 sentence explaining how this movement involves the reader in the advert and makes us want to be part of the sports campaign. And then the third mark for judging it, saying that this promotes the campaign because we feel like we need to join in. We feel like we'd be missing out on something if we didn't. If you go and have a look at your memo, some of the other things that you could have discussed is the blocked capitals of key words like inspiring and excellence and sport to get the reader focused on the main message. You could speak about the use of pronouns like us and our, which create a sense of unity and sportsmanship and make us want to be part of the movement. You could have spoken about the repetition of inspiring and inspiration. Remember, repetition always emphasizes the message. And you could have spoken about the fact that it's in the continuous present tense, which shows that sport is something which is moving right now in South Africa. So I discussed 2 examples at length, and then you can go and have a look at the others on the memo. But please make sure you're referring to the words, you're giving the example from the words, and explaining the technique it involves, and then you're judging the technique, saying how it promotes the campaign. Really break those questions down for me, guys. All right, we move to 3.3 and 3.4. And we're back in the world of low-hanging fruit. If you've studied your survival guide, do you see, gents, that language in this paper is already adding up to 14 at this stage? It's not just 10 anymore, it's 14, because there are 2 language questions in the advert as well. So please spend time again today going through that survival guide to paper 1 and learning your language. Low-hanging fruit is only low-hanging fruit for those who study. Okay, it's fraught fruit for those who don't. Okay, 3.3 says choose the most appropriate response from the list of options provided, and they give us a sentence. Sport continues to be a driving force that inspires our people and positions South Africa positively on the global stage. Okay. So, the above mentioned is an example of a simple sentence, an adverbial clause, a complex sentence, or a compound sentence. So, they're testing our knowledge of sentence structure here. And if you don't have good knowledge of sentence structure, then you very much need to go and study it. Okay? So, firstly, let's just talk about the number B is an adverbial clause. Let's just talk about the difference between a phrase and a clause. A phrase is a group of words that do not contain a finite verb, and a clause is a group of words that do contain a finite verb. What is a finite verb? A finite verb is a verb that has subject, number, and tense. So, sport continues to be a driving force. Okay. Continues is my verb. All right. Sport is my subject. My subject is singular, and we know which tense it's in. It's in the present tense, and there is a subject. So a finite verb is a verb that has subject, number, and tense, and a clause is a group of words that does contain a finite verb. So a clause is essentially a section of a sentence that contains a finite verb. So this idea of an adverbial clause would mean that it's a descriptive sentence, okay, that has a finite verb. All right. Now, if we look at this sentence has the verb continues and it has the verb inspires, okay? There are 2 verbs in this sentence, which means that it's not a clause, all right? And it's not a simple sentence because a simple sentence contains 1 verb. A simple sentence is subject, verb, object. Okay? So this sentence actually says, sport continues to be a driving force that inspires our people. Continues and inspires are both verbs. And so this sentence must either be compound or complex. Let's look at the definition here of a compound sentence. Okay? A compound sentence is a sentence that contains 2 or more coordinate main clauses, okay, but no subordinate clauses. So a compound sentence contains 2 clauses, 2 finite verbs, joined by a conjunction. Sometimes the conjunction can be a punctuation mark, so watch out. And there are two main clauses. Each of the clauses can stand on their own. Sport continues to be a driving force. Sport inspires our people and positions. Can those two things stand alone? No, they can't. Okay? They are linked in this instance. Sport continues to be a driving force that inspires. There's a direct relationship between the sport, the subject at the beginning of the sentence here, the sport, and the second verb, the inspiring, which must mean that my sentence is a complex sentence. What is a complex sentence? A sentence that contains one main clause and one or more subordinate clauses. So it's a complex sentence. It's a complex relationship. There are levels within a complex sentence. There are relationships, right? And in this sentence, sport is a driving force, and it's a driving force that inspires us, okay? So the inspiration and the sport being a driving force are very much related to each other. The clauses cannot stand alone, and so it is a complex sentence. Now I want to give you a hack which can sometimes help you. Remember I said that a compound sentence uses a coordinating conjunction, all right? A complex sentence uses a subordinating conjunction. It creates that power relationship. One sentence is below the other. One cannot make sense without the other. And so if a sentence contains two verbs and it contains a subordinating conjunction, then you immediately know that it's a complex sentence. So you could actually go and learn this list of subordinating conjunctions more or less off by heart. And you could know that words like than and that and because and if and as, those words are subordinating conjunctions. And if you see two verbs joined by a subordinating conjunction, it must be a complex sentence. So there's a little hack that you can study to help you with simple, compound, and complex sentences. But unfortunately, sometimes they're onto us with this conjunction thing, and then sometimes they use a punctuation mark as a conjunction, and then we've got to look at the power relationship between the two sentences, or the two clauses. If each clause can stand alone, it's complex. If one is reliant on the fix your teacher's mistake. If each clause can stand alone, it's a compound sentence because they've just been compounded, they've been joined together. But if one is dependent on the other one, there are levels in this relationship, and it's a complex relationship or a complex sentence. Simple sentence only contains subject, verb, object. Clause has a finite verb, has subject, number, and tense. Phrase, no finite verb, just a little piece of a sentence with no subject, or you don't know which verb which tense or number of people you're dealing with. Okay. I hope that helps. Go and study this if you're not comfortable with this theory. The answer is C, a complex sentence. And then 3.4 is so easy. If you learned subject, verb, and object way back in grade 4, rewrite the following clause as a statement that includes a subject. So be part of a team, be is a verb, and part of a team is an object. You need to put in a subject and a helping verb so that you can make it a statement, an SVO, simple sentence statement. Okay? So I might say something like, you should be part of a team. I've added in you as my subject, but now I can't say you be part of a team. To have agreement, subject verb agreement, I put in the helping verb, you should be part of a team, or you must be part of a team. They're not specific about which subject you can put in. So you could even have said, Michael must be part of a team, a person's name, as long as it's a subject. Low-hanging fruit, done and dusted. All right, let's move to our last question for the day. 4.5, our comparative question. And you'll see that this question is based on both text D and E, the two adverts that we analyzed during the course of the lesson. The question says, consider text D and E. In your opinion, which visual image is more effective to promote the campaign? Justify your response. And this is a 3 marker, okay? Now, guys, the last question in the advert or in the comprehension is at the same time a higher order thinking question and a question where you can earn marks for following the recipe and for sewing your answer together correctly. So many of you jump straight into the critical comment and you say that text E is the most effective advert because it has real people and the other advert doesn't. That's worth 1 mark because you've given the judgment around the fact that they're real people, but you haven't said why that's effective. You've made the choice. You haven't given the judgment of why that's effective, and you haven't told me what it contrasts from. It contrasts from the fact that there are cartoons used in text D that play many different sports, and so they create a confusing message. Whereas the real people playing cricket, a concrete sport, looking assertive in text E, convince me that I should also be part of this movement. I should also go out and play cricket just like them. Do you see how I link my judgment to my text, and then I create a counter argument for the other text? You also can't just talk up in the sky, right? Pie in the sky mention a lot of things. Part of the recipe of getting the marks for this answer is by specifying in text D, blah, blah, blah. In text E, blah, blah, blah. I choose text E because. And if I sew my answer together logically like that, I'm going to have proof and an argument at D, and proof and an argument at E, and then I'm going to have my critical judgment or my opinion when I put the two together, and I'm going to make sure I can earn all the marks, whether it's for 2, 3, or 4 marks. The formula is always the same for a comparative question. Just varies how kind they are in terms of mark allocation. All right. So guys, and here's where I was making funny boxes earlier and I was on the wrong slide. When we're doing our comparative question, let's remember our basics and let's do our question analysis. Let's look for the question word, the focus area, and the special instructions. So, question word here, in your opinion, and that's a really nice, easy way for them to tell us that we need to make a judgment here. And there's a second question word which says justify. In your opinion means give judgment. Justify means give detail. Elaborate on your judgment, okay? So you need to give a detailed response. Question word sorted, we know that we need to give lots of detail and we need to end with a judgment. Focus area. Now here the examiner once again pointed out that learners did not focus on the correct thing. The focus area here, guys, is the visual image. So if you start talking to me about the words inspire or the words rise or the pronouns, it's all wrong. Why? Those are the written elements of the adverts. They want us to look at the visual image, the picture. Picture also doesn't mean layout, ne? So we can't start talking about the sun. Got to just talk about the picture. So we have the cartoon characters that are playing different types of sports, and we have the real people who are women playing cricket, who are all nice and confident. Those are the two things we're speaking about in this answer, the visual images, and then the second aspect of focus area, which one is more effective in promoting the campaign. So remember we said to promote the campaign means to sell the campaign. Which one is more effective? I'm sure you know by now that that means which one is better. So there's our question. Which one of these two adverts is better at selling the campaign? Give us your opinion. All right. Now, special instructions. Please never neglect special instructions. The special instructions here is that we have to look at both texts, or the special instructions are that we have to look at both texts. Practice your Concord, Mrs. Charasika. Let's look at both texts, okay? So, which one do I think is better? I think you've heard this for a long, long time now that I far prefer the one with the real people. So I'm going to say something like this. In text E, There are real women portrayed playing cricket, and their body language is very confident. In text E, it's simply cartoon characters playing a range of different sports, and so I struggle to identify with them because neither the people nor the sports are specific. There I've told you about both answers. I've told you the visual aspect, the real people versus the cartoons, and I've told you what I like and don't like about them. I like the fact that real people are relatable and that their body language is confident. I don't like the fact that the cartoon characters are non-specific and playing different sports. Now, I've discussed the visual images. I've given my opinion on the visual images, but now I've got to say which one is more effective in promoting the campaign. I would prefer text E to promote the campaign because I think that real people will attract a real audience. There you go. 3rd mark earned. All right. I want to read the memo answer to you just to fact check myself. It says, in text D, the visual image is more effective as it includes diverse sporting codes. The dynamic portrayal of the figures in the graphic contributes to a sense of vibrancy and energy. In text E, the human figures are more convincing or relatable or identifiable. The team members depicted represent a successful team. They look assertive and confident, which evokes pride. So you could have chosen either one. Do you see? They're giving you reasons why both are effective, and then you've got to sew your answer together to create an argument. And they say that you can credit mixed responses. Some of you gents may here have said that you prefer text D because text D are cartoon characters that show a range of different sports that different people can relate to, whereas text E is specifically only on female cricket players, which might exclude anyone who's not a female cricket player and mean that text D will draw a wider and more diverse audience from different sporting codes. That would be a completely creditable answer. All right, I've taken lots of your time today, 52 minutes, because we really have to revise advertising techniques thoroughly to be able to get the easy marks that are available when we break down the advertising questions. All right, take the last 8 minutes and go through your advertising theory. Have a great day. Please send through questions if you are confused.